Hello everyone, today is 17th of October, now it's 11 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Second update today will be published on my Patreon and Boosty pages later on with all the additional reports from Russian media during the day. And if you like my work, if you want to have access to more news from Russia and there are possibly more content, not necessarily about news and politics, please consider to join our communities on Patreon and Boosty. Monthly subscription starts from $5 and the links are under this video in description box and in the pinned comment. That's being said, let's go through some news now. And first of all, of course, I have to talk about this so-called victory plan of Zelensky. I guess vast majority of our community already had a good laugh at this plan that Zelensky himself presented yesterday to Ukrainian public or even world public. He was in Ukraine's Rada, so-called parliament there. And he gave his speech and presented 5 points from this so-called plan. And he mentioned that there are another 3 points that are classified and will be available only for Western masters of the Kiev regime. But let's go through these 5 points that he mentioned. There first, and I posted about it, of course, on my Telegram channel yesterday. So first point is that Ukraine should receive an immediate invitation to join NATO. And well, this is non-starter, by the way. And that's why entire world, I guess, whoever paid any attention to Zelensky and his statements laughed at him. Ukraine, of course, never gonna join NATO. I said it many times before, and I can repeat myself that this is non-starter. This is not happening. So Ukraine will never ever join NATO. This is a total illusion of Zelensky and his advisors, whoever advised him to put this nonsense into this victory plan. Although, dear friends, let me notice that in my personal opinion, after this conflict will end, Ukraine will be divided into 2 parts, at least. So Western Ukraine most likely will be reclaimed by Poland, Hungary, Romania, because Western parts of Ukraine used to be territories of these republics. And therefore, because these countries are members of NATO, then Western Ukraine will join NATO eventually and will be controlled by NATO. But rest of the Ukraine is a whole another story. And the rest of the Ukraine obviously will become a part of Russia or will be controlled by Russia, even in case if Kiev and surrounding areas will maintain quasi-statehood and will stay on a political map as Ukraine. Obviously, in that case, Moscow will have strong demand that this quasi-state should remain neutral, and of course, Moscow will have a significant influence over that state. Although me personally don't understand why would Moscow ever agree on such a divide of Ukraine if Kiev will remain so-called, independent. But anyways, that's a whole different story. Western Ukraine will join NATO eventually. Rest of the Ukraine, no, it's not happening. Second point of Zelensky's this victory plan is continuing military operations on Russian soil. However, Ukraine has already lost half of the territory that Kiev regime's forces and NATO mercenaries managed to occupy on initial phase or on initial stages of this incursion into the Russia's borderline areas of the Kursk region. And Russian counter-terrorist operation is accelerating, and there are high likelihood that Kiev regime's formations and NATO mercenaries in Kursk salient area will be divided in several parts. They will end up in cold rooms in upcoming days, and Russian side will take them out one by one. Although, as I reported yesterday, Anatoly Shary, a prominent Ukrainian journalist, public figure, politician in exile, he lives in Spain, reported on his channels that, according to his sources, Kiev regime's formations in the Kursk salient already received order to get ready for rapid withdrawal from Kursk salient. So possibly after upcoming Biden's trip in Europe, Zelensky and his criminal associates will issue such an order to their troops in the Kursk salient, and they will leave that part of Russia. So I don't really understand about what kind of incursions to Russian territory Zelensky is talking about, while they are unable to maintain positions in these Kursk region's borderline areas that they had occupied temporarily. So this is also a nonsensical pointer. Third point is a non-nuclear deterrence package is set to be deployed to Ukraine by NATO, obviously. Through the specifics are currently being kept secret. When presented to Russia, these measures is expected to bring Moscow to the negotiating table. Also total nonsense, by the way. There are reports in media that on this point, Kiev regime or Zelensky were basically talking about long-range weapon systems to be deployed in Ukraine and long-range strikes to be conducted on Russia, or Russia to be threatened with the long-range strikes. And according to these idiots, that will force Moscow to obey orders from Kiev or from the West and agree on whatever demands they will have, which is also nonsensical, by the way. You share your opinion in the comment sections, but I mean, this is nonsense, right? And Russian leadership was very clear, including Russian president, that Russian nuclear doctrine is undergoing some serious upgrade, serious changes, and it is highly likely that if these long-range strikes will take place deep inside Russian territory, Moscow will retaliate with some extreme force, and I doubt that Western ruling class is that crazy that they want to be on receiving ends of this Russian retaliation, right? So therefore, I don't think this third point of Zelensky's victory plan also is something of relevance. This is non-starter also. I don't think Western ruling class will authorize NATO member states to start targeting Russian territory with their missiles, right? Fourth point, although by the way, only time will tell, but I'm sharing with you my take on this topic. Fourth point in this plan is a confidential economic plan involving the EU and the US. Aims to leverage Ukraine's economic potential, somehow leading to a peace through economic power. I mean, you tell me what this idiot is talking about, this Zelensky. He's asking for more money and more weapons, obviously, always. And this so-called victory plan is no exception. But, I mean, let's be real. Fatigue on topic of Ukraine in the West is increasing dramatically as time goes by, and there are less and less willingness among collective West countries to continue this constant flow of money to Kiev regime, and therefore I mean this Ukrainian style Marshall Plan that Germany had after Second World War will definitely never happen. Let's be clear on that also. After all, by the way, Ukraine itself will most likely would not exist on the political map after this conflict will end, or only territory under such name of Ukraine that may remain on the political map will be Kiev and surrounding areas, that landlocked small part. And that's all, right? Rest of the Ukraine will be for sure divided between NATO and Russia. NATO will most likely end up controlling western parts of Ukraine, which will be reclaimed eventually by Poland, Hungary, and Romania, because those territories used to be part of these republics. And rest of their territory are historical Russian territories. Russians are living there. And of course, those territories will join Mother Russia. That's how it's going to be. So therefore, fourth point is also absolute nonsense. And fifth point is that Ukraine's veteran militaries is to be used as a NATO's European defense contingent, potentially replacing American troops. Okay. Some, I mean, we all understand that there are certain military personnel in Ukraine that definitely has more experience than vast majority of their NATO troops, right? When it comes to high intensity battles, but number of those highly experienced militaries is getting smaller and smaller, and the vast majority in Kiev regime's forces right now are forcefully mobilized, poorly trained, poorly equipped reservists that don't want to fight, right? And they are using first opportunity to surrender, to lay down arms. And I mean, how anybody can take those troops, middle age of which is average age of which is 40 to 50 years, how anybody can take seriously this idea of Zelensky that these pensioners, basically, almost the pensioners, all right? And I am, by the way, 47-year-old, so, you know, I'm definitely not in my prime, right? Let's be, I mean, real here. So, I mean, who can take seriously this statement of Zelensky that this 40, 45, 50-year-old men in Ukraine's or Kiev regime's armies are forced to be reckoned with and are capable of replacing US troops? Come on, man. Come on. So this is victory plan, by the way. This is a so-called victory plan. As I said, the world had a good laugh at it yesterday, and you know, let us laugh once again. I mean, laugh is good stuff. Makes our life a little longer, right? So that's all, really. The total nonsense, total wrong nonsense. And I said even before Zelensky presented this victory plan that it will be a wish lister, most likely, and it is a wish lister, nothing that can be taken seriously. And this is exactly the approach that commentators here in Russia have taken towards this presentation. Kremlin reacted on it, also foreign ministry reacted on it, and they were quite ironic, to say the least. They were quite ironic about this victory plan for the Kiev regime, of the Kiev regime. No one is taking it seriously, obviously. And yes, again, I mean, you share your opinion, dear friends. Do you take seriously any of the points of that victory plan? I doubt, but I mean, let's have a conversation on that. And now some other news. RIA Novosti is reporting that in Cherkasy, by the way, in Cherkasy, which is Kiev controlled there at this point, criminals of the Kiev regime entered the Church of Canonic Orthodox Church of Ukraine and tried to terrorize churchgoers, priests. Just look at this video, by the way. Just look at this video. That's what is happening on Kiev controlled territory. There was firearms, shot, paper spray used, but locals, as you can see, dear friends, they give a fight. They give a fight because for them this is, of course, existential stuff. In no circumstances, even if Kiev regime banned Canonic Orthodox Church of Ukraine, people not gonna change their faith just because Zelensky wants so, right? Or some neo-Nazis and the fascists in the Kiev regime. And more and more people are waking up in Kiev-controlled territory and realizing that some action to be taken. And you see on a video, by the way, that people are not afraid to go against armed criminals of the Kiev regime. And some shots were fired in that church, right? And people still don't scare. They give a fight. And this is clearly indicator. This is clearly indicator for things to come. I guess in likelihood that we will see some internal rebellion in Kiev-controlled territory in next 2 to 3 months is increasingly high. I mean, give it 2 to 3, maybe 5 months, and I expect large scale rebellion inside the Kiev controlled territory. For many reasons. People waking up little by little. This propaganda of the West, propaganda of the Kiev regime is no longer working, and people are beginning to see with their own eyes. And the people are beginning to believe their own eyes, not the propaganda, but their own eyes, what is happening, right? And they have plenty of reasons to rebel against this occupying regime in Kiev. NATO occupying regime in Kiev. Let's continue with some more news. RIA Novosti is reporting that Russian armed forces liberated 2 more settlements on line of contact. One is Krasny Yar in DPR, and another one is Nevskaya in Lugansk People's Republic. Progress of the Russian armed forces continues on the line of contact and also in the Kursk salient area. RIA Novosti is reporting that Russian air defense systems intercepted 13 drones of the Kiev regime during their previous night over the Kursk, Bryansk and regions, also over the Oryol region of the Russian Federation. Also, we have Vzlyad newspapers report that unfortunately Kiev regime's forces are now shelling Energodar city and the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant on daily basis. This was reported by director of communications of the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, Evgeny Yashina. So as situation for Kiev regime and their Western masters deteriorates on a battlefield, they are relying on a terrorist activity more and more. And obviously attacks on Energodar city and Zaporozhye nuclear power plant is a nuclear terrorism, which is supported by the Western ruling class. There is no way around it, by the way. We all understand that if Washington or London demanded from Kiev regime to stop any attacks on nuclear facilities in Russia, they will stop. Kiev regime has no say, right? And they will never dare to disobey orders from Washington and London. Therefore, these attacks on nuclear facilities, this nuclear terrorism is supported by Washington and London. It is obvious. It's just too obvious. So you tell me what kind of regimes then are there in Washington and London? Are these terrorist regimes if they are supporting nuclear terrorism? It is. I mean, for me, answer is clear. Let's continue with some more news. Vzlyad newspaper is also reporting that according to Russian Defense Ministry's latest update on the Kursk salient area, Kiev regime in this direction already lost since the beginning of incursion more than 23,500 military personnel, which is at least 7 to 8 brigades, by the way, in terms of Ukraine, because very rarely Kiev regime's brigades are more than 3,000 military personnel, 4,000 very rarely, right? And they already lost 23,000 killed and wounded, which is definitely about at least 7 brigades. From strategical reserve that Kiev regime had, most of these brigades were located on the Belarusian border and now being decimated by Russian troops in the Kursk salient area. Also, Kiev regime lost since the beginning of this invasion of the bordering areas of the Kursk region, 160 tanks, 934 different type of armored carriers, also over 200, by the way, infantry fighting vehicles and armored personnel carriers, 189 artillery systems, also 9 HIMARS multi-launch rocket systems, and many more equipment, engineering equipment, and air defense systems, and so on. Huge numbers, isn't it, by the way? Huge numbers, and it is not at all surprising that most likely in upcoming days, once Biden's upcoming trip in Europe will end, probably Kiev regime under the orders of their Western masters will start withdrawing its forces from Kursk salient area before they can withdraw anybody at all, because Russian troops are very close to break up this Ukrainian Kiev regime's grouping of forces in Kursk salient and NATO mercenaries into several smaller groups to encircle them and then neutralize one by one. So in a couple of weeks' time, there might be nothing and no one left from Kiev regime's grouping of forces there to be evacuated or withdrawn. RT is reporting that 90% of Ukraine's thermal power capacities are destroyed there. So almost all of Ukraine's thermal power generation capabilities have been destroyed by Russian long-range strikes. Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal has stated, adding that the country must now rely on substitutes. Writing on Telegram on Tuesday, Shmyhal said Kiev is doing its best to increase energy sustainability, especially in frontline regions and areas bordering Russia. He added that cities that depend on large thermal power plants are especially vulnerable, given that Russia purposefully attacked this type of facilities, destroying or damaging almost 90% of all thermal power generation in the country. Well, Russian armed forces have no option, isn't it? Kiev regime is obviously using electricity to power its military-industrial complex, to create whatever weapons they still are able to create, and to repair weapon systems that was damaged on the line of contact or elsewhere. And of course, Russia has to take action against the logistics and military infrastructure of the Kiev regime, including power plants. And society in Ukraine should think about consequences of their actions earlier, right? Earlier. Because if they were thinking that, you know what, they're gonna say nothing and do nothing when Nazis and fascists are entering the power, conducting coup d'etat in 2014, and were then terrorizing Russian speakers in Donbass, and they will be okay. No, they would not be okay. And now they are facing consequences of their inaction, because this former Soviet republic is run by Nazis and fascists that needs to be neutralized, right? There is no other options there. These criminals have to be neutralized by any means necessary. And because Ukrainian society, or citizens of Ukraine, did not bother to deal with this situation before it get this bad, then, well, Russian troops will do it. Now, Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that administration of the Russian administration of the Kharkov region made a decision to support idea that is circulating in the public there to conduct referendum about joining the Russian Federation. Quite interesting news, or indicator of the things to come, right? Although, dear friends, first Kharkov region have to declare independence from this quasi-state under the name of Ukraine. And when if Russia will recognize independence, if people will vote for independence from Kiev regime, then most likely Russia will recognize these results, and after that, and only after that, obviously, Kharkov region as an independent from Kiev regime territory or republic can join Russian Federation, as it happened in Zaporozhye, in DPR, LPR, and Kherson, right? So there are some legal steps to be taken before any historically Russian territory that was given to this created by Bolsheviks entity, Ukraine, will rejoin Russia. So therefore, I think whoever was initiating these talks among residents of Kharkov region, they have to, approach this topic a little differently. Maybe first they should declare independence from Ukraine and conduct a referendum on that, as it was done, as I said, in other regions. In Crimea, that was the case. In Kherson region, Zaporozhye region, DPR and the LPR. But obviously, I have no doubts, dear friends, personally, that Kharkov region, from Kharkov to Odessa, by the way, all of it will rejoin Russia, because it is Russian, historically Russian territory, and locals, people that are living there, are Russians. And no one asked them or their parents or grandparents, when Bolsheviks were creating this so-called Ukraine and giving Russian lands to this never existed republic, never before existed their entity. No one asked people what they were thinking, like it happened with Crimea, by the way. Many people in the West don't even know that Crimea was taken from Russia by Khrushchev, this sick individual, this criminal, that was from Ukraine himself. And this dirty animal, Khrushchev, took Crimea and gave it to Ukraine. It was 50s, isn't it? And not even single resident of Crimea was asked about it. No one. But you tell me how many people about it know in the West. And by the way, when it comes to Crimea, there is also an interesting topic. These communist criminals during the Khrushchev era, they did not bother to go through all legal means, all legal steps, while transferring Russian territory to this Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, this nonsense that they created previously, right? And therefore, according to law, by the way, Crimea was officially never really transferred to Ukraine, because all steps was not conducted, legally. Crimean leadership is arguing that actually Crimea, on legal terms, never left Russia. It was always part of Russia, but was managed by Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, because on a top level decision was made about transfer of this peninsula. But on the lower levels, on legislative terms, this transaction never was legalized, right? How many people knows about that in the West? I guess very few, right? So yes, as I said, by the way, of course, Kharkov region, Dnipropetrovsk region, they will join Russia 100%. Sumy, Chernigov regions, at least partially, should join Russian Federation and should definitely be liberated from this occupying regime, NATO's occupying regime. Kiev, by the way, if you ask me, Kiev also, obviously, and Odessa region, Nikolaev region, just entire Ukraine, so-called Ukraine, should be liberated and join Russia, with the exception of Western Ukraine, because I don't care about Western Ukraine, never did. And I believe vast majority of fellow citizens here in Russia don't have any care about Western Ukraine. It's a Nazi stronghold, fascist stronghold. It was like that always, and Western Ukraine never gained respect of their Soviet people, really, after what these Ukrainian Nazis and fascists were doing during the Second World War and after the Second World War. By the way, many people don't know that Ukrainian Nazis and fascists were continuing terrorizing people longer after Second World War end on our territories of Western Ukraine and Belarus. They were hiding in the forests. They had a connection with their Western secret services. And until mid-50s, I believe, there are still these Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists that were operating through the forestry, vast forestry in those areas, and were terrorizing people. Eventually, of course, Soviet troops take them out, but just to know that Western Ukraine was always territory that never gained any true respect from people, exactly because of there's Nazis and the fascists there. And by the way, same attitude have not just Russians or former Soviet people, but ask Poles, not Polish elites, but ask all the ordinary Poles. By the way, I think they still are angry on and want justice to be served when it comes to atrocities that the Ukrainian Nazis committed against Poles, right? And good luck to Poland if they want to reclaim this territory, by the way, and good luck to them to fight those Nazis, because they're gonna end up fighting very same Nazis and fascists that they are supplying weapons to right now. Just mark my words, dear friends. Europe, including Poland, they're gonna regret big time that they were in support of Ukrainian Nazis and fascists, because Ukrainian terrorism is coming to the West. That's what is going to happen. Anyways, let's continue Artist reporting. And dear friends, I saw yesterday commentary, and one member was writing that one member of our community, I guess our community, was writing that I spend too much time commenting certain news, and I should not do this. Well, dear friends, this is Levan Gudadze's opinion, right? This is opinion piece. I'm sharing news, I'm sharing commentary. That's how I do these programs since the beginning, right? If you want something else, then maybe my programs are not for you. I mean, if you want just news with no commentary, no nothing, I mean, you can read it, by the way. You can access every single website that I'm opening here. But, that's how I'm making these programs from the very beginning, and vast majority of community are watching these programs because it is entertaining, because it is opinion from Russian, right? That very rarely they can hear anywhere else, even though almost everybody is talking about Russia, right? So therefore, I mean, I don't know what to do in this case. I'm sharing my opinion. If you don't like it, then, I mean, you can unsubscribe and you can watch CNN, I don't know, or BBC. So yes, that's been said, let's continue with some more news. I watch other channels, by the way. For example, let's take Duran, right? And the personal channels of the Alexander Mercuris and the Alex Christoforou. I watched programs that they make because I want to hear not just news that most likely I already read, but I want to hear their opinion. That's what is important, right? When I watch New Atlas, by the way, great channel also, I want to hear opinion of Brian Borletti, right? Not just the news that most likely I already read. That's what is the point in these programs, right? Opinion. And if you think my opinion is not qualified enough, then I cannot help it in no ways. I mean, then you should truly unsubscribe and find some new channel, right? But if you think it is important to have access to opinions from a Russian citizen who spent almost entire his life in journalism, then you're more than welcome. RT is reporting that the British military believes Kiev on the verge of losing, according to media reports. So behind the closed doors, the British military has grim expectations for the Ukraine conflict and believes that Kiev is about to lose. The tabloid Daily Express claimed on Tuesday. Over the past months, Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky has been touting his victory plan that we already know that is a laughingstock to foreign leaders. Later this week, he is set to unveil, I mean, this is from a Wednesday report, right? And yesterday, from Tuesday, but on Wednesday, yesterday, Zelensky already unveiled his plans. So what Zelensky will present to his nation on Wednesday will not include the specific numbers of requested weapons shipments by donor nations, according to his aide Mikhail Podolyak. Okay, we all know this. As one of the key suppliers of the arms to Ukraine, Britain has publicly supported Kyiv's uncompromising position in the conflict with Russia, but private assessments by its generals say the situation is bad for Ukraine. A military source cited the Daily Express said, I was speaking to a very senior British officers today. The source was quoted as saying, and he told me, this source, that Ukraine is on the verge of losing the war against Russia. It is very serious. So, okay, I mean, British militaries, at least not in public, they are acknowledging that Kyiv regime's situation is disastrous. Okay, it is not surprising for us, for our community, because we know it. But I guess when such articles, with such opinions are read by Western public that never bother to check some independent media for a better understanding of the reality. Well, for those people that were only watching news or receiving news from Western MSM, of course, this kind of article is going to be kind of shocking, because probably if they are only watching BBC, CNN, MNN, that kind of garbage, probably they are thinking that Kyiv regime's troops are about to take Moscow. And when they read now that, you know what, I mean, Kyiv regime troops are in disastrous situation and they are about to lose, probably people will start scratching their heads. That's why alternative media is important, by the way. You want to know what is going on in this world? Only way is internet and alternative media. Vzгляд newspaper is also reporting that, according to Business Insider, Kyiv regime already lost about 40 Leopard 2 tanks that was delivered to Kyiv regime by NATO member states, including Germany. And recently, dear friends, I reported that, according to Bild, Berlin no longer wants to send any Leopard 2 tanks or any other heavy military equipment, including Marder infantry, fighting vehicles and howitzers, self-prepared howitzers. Although formally Germany still has 300 Leopard 2s, but well, information was that they don't want to send it no more, and overall 40 Leopards were destroyed. This is Leopard 2s, by the way. How many Leopard 1s were destroyed there? Probably, I mean, no one knows at this point. There was a scandal, isn't it, in regards to Leopard 1s. There were several deliveries of Leopard 1s, and even Kyiv regime refused to take it. That's how bad condition of those tanks were, right? And when it comes to Leopard 2s, they are very capable tanks, by the way. I will never say that these tanks are garbage or something. No, these are decent tanks, but for certain circumstances, for certain areas of operations, they perform quite poorly. These Western tanks performed quite poorly in zone of special military operation. And first of all, because of they are too heavy. There was two schools of tank building, isn't it, in the world? Main schools: Western one and Soviet one. Soviet one went through to the direction of lighter tanks, less armored but lighter, maneuverable tanks. So Western tank building school went her other way. Western tanks are not as maneuverable, but they have more armor, right? And therefore, in certain circumstances, like in zone of special military operation, these extremely heavy Western tanks, among which Leopard 2 is relatively light, with some 68 tons or under 70 tons. The rest of the tanks are, I mean, over 70 tons, I believe. Abrams tanker is 70 ton, if I remember correctly. Definitely heavier than Leopard 2. And the Challenger is even heavier than Abrams, right? And these tanks, I mean, they are like sitting ducks on the battlefield. They are too over-engineered. on one hand, and that makes them difficult to use. Spare parts are difficult to obtain, and also they are too heavy. They are just too heavy. They are quite often getting stuck and are sitting ducks. And how many videos we see when Russian drone operators are taking out these tanks, not on the move, but while they are stuck somewhere. So yes, Kiev regime is losing its Western equipment in a big time. Although 40 Leopard 2s, this is not an extreme number, obviously, but if Germany will send all its 300 Leopard 2s, by the way, you think how long it will take for Russian side to obliterate those tanks? Months, maybe. But once they will arrive on the line of contact, days for them are numbered. RT is reporting that US announces new Ukraine aid package. So US President Joe Biden has unveiled a new military aid package for Ukraine worth $425 million and promised more support in the future. Their package includes missiles for the NASAMS and the Stinger air defense systems, rockets for HIMARS launchers, and artillery shells. The US will continue to work with their some 50 allies and their partners to meet Ukraine's urgently needed battlefield requirements, the White House said. So, okay, another 450 million worth of military weapons will be transferred there, or most likely already being transferred to Kiev regime. It would not change, obviously, outcome of this conflict, but of course, these constant deliveries of weapons are prolonging this conflict and are causing more and more devastation. First of all, to Ukraine itself, right? And if you ask these Western so-called elites, they're constantly talking about how they love Ukraine and how they love Ukrainian citizens. You know, they love them so much. You know, so much so that they want all of them to die in this proxy war against Russia. Man. And I wonder how long it will take for citizens of Ukraine to realize that they've been used as a, you know. Anyways, let's continue. How long is this update, man? It's 42 minutes already. Okay, a few more news, dear friends, and I will end this update on that. And then another update. I will make two videos, I guess, for YouTube and Rumble. And later in the evening, I will also make an additional update for with all the latest reports on my Patreon and Boosty page. So TASS News Agency is reporting that Olaf Scholz once again spoke about having a conversation with Putin. Let's translate this. Let's translate this, man. So, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said he is ready to discuss with Russian President Vladimir Putin ways to resolve the conflict in Ukraine. For the last couple of weeks, this is, I don't know, third time Scholz is making such a statement that he is ready to talk to Putin. Can anybody tell me why Putin should spend any time to talk to Scholz? I mean, that's the question, right? I mean, do you really interested in any opinions that Scholz have? Why would Putin spend any time to talk to this representative of the US occupying regime, really, in Germany? I mean, what is the point? Talk just for a talk? No. And therefore, most likely, there will be no phone conversation between Putin and this individual, Chancellor of Germany, because, I mean, what for? And a couple of days ago, I reported, dear friends, that Annalena Baerbock, Foreign Minister of Germany, stated publicly that even though Berlin, Scholz is open for conversations with Putin, according to Baerbock, it's the Russian side that don't really find this talk necessary. And I can see why. I can understand why, because what the hell, man? Putin is a very busy man, right? And why would he spend an hour of his workday, approximately, I guess, hour, talking to some nobody, you know, talking to no, who the hell is Schultz, man? Just nobody, really. U.S. puppet. And why would anybody spend any time talking to puppets, man? You know. If Putin wants to talk to puppets, he has dogs, isn't it? And he can talk to dogs. I mean, that will be more pleasant, at least, to play with the dogs, but to talk to these Schultz, by the way. Who the hell is this, man? Anyways, let's continue. RT is reporting that the Ukraine fatigue is real, according to Foreign Minister of NATO member state. Okay, we all understand this. Western countries are becoming tired of supporting Ukraine and are hoping for resolution of the conflict. Finnish Foreign Minister Elina Valtonen has stated, and okay, very rare occasion when one may agree with anything that comes out of Helsinki, and in this particular case, yes, we all understand that, and we all see, by the way, by some surveys and other means that yes, Ukraine fatigue is real, and not just among this political class in the West, but first of all, more and more people, ordinary people like us, are waking up and are beginning to ask questions. Because, you know, they may not have enough information to realize that it's a Russia that is on right side of history, and it's a Western ruling class that are bad boys, right, and the bullies, and needs to be taken care of, right? But even if these more and more people that are waking up in the West are not well informed at this point, at least, and don't really understand which one is good guys and which one is bullies. Well, at least they see what's going on around them in their own countries, right? And they don't want another billions and billions and billions and billions to be spent on this Ukraine that they don't even know where it is, and they will never travel through, and they never care about, while bridges collapsing in their city, or roads needs to be have repair, or more and more homeless people are walking around, right? So people are waking up to the reality around them, and they're demanding more attention to be given to the societies there by government, not to Ukraine and Zelensky and his corrupt associates, right? So yes, Ukraine fatigue is real, and I will end this update on this report from RT, that new NATO Secretary General once again commented about this conflict, Ukrainian conflict, and let's go through this news. NATO will continue to provide Kyiv with large amounts of military aid so that it can keep fighting against Russia. Secretary General of the NATO, Mark Rutte, has said, outlining the bloc's strategy on Ukraine, speaking to the reporters at the joint press conference with Latvian Prime Minister Evika Silina in Brussels on Wednesday. Rutte explained that NATO is committed to preventing Putin from getting his way in Ukraine. This is unacceptable, Rutte said, stating that you cannot invade another country in the world of 2022, 2023, 2024. What is he talking about? Is he represents NATO that destroyed Libya just like several years ago? And in Libya, as a result of this NATO aggression, now people being sold on the markets at some places. And I'm not exaggerating, by the way. I mean, if you want to know more about current state of Libya, I mean, do some research. It's a hell there, right? And why Libya in such a situation right now? Maybe because of the NATO. No? What about Yugoslavia? Did Mark Rutte knows anything about Yugoslavia that was bombed by NATO and destroyed by NATO, and then Serbia. That's why these people will never gain any respect, by the way. That's why these people will never gain any respect. What about Israel? What about Israel? How many NATO member states are transferring weapons to Israel? And as far as I know, it's Israeli forces that are occupying West Bank, occupying Gaza Strip, and now occupying parts of Lebanon. Nothing to be said about Golan Heights, Syrian territory that is occupied for decades by Israel. What about that? So yeah, Mark Rutte, read some books and get educated, for God's sake. You are a laughingstock. When someone from a collective West starts talking about borders of the other countries, man, I mean, it sounds too bad, man. And no one can take them seriously because it's Western states that are constantly attacking countries after countries after countries, right? And not just for decades, by the way, for centuries. For centuries. Take a look at the last 500 years, man. And when it comes to Ukrainian crisis, it's NATO that provoked this war. Not Russia, it's NATO that was bringing closer and closer its military infrastructure to Russia. Despite all the warnings from Moscow, it's a NATO member states that conducted coup d'etat in 2014. It's NATO member states that supported Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists and put them in power. It's a NATO member states that supported killings of the civilians in Donbass by Ukrainian Nazis and fascists, right? So it was NATO and NATO member states that provoked this conflict, not to Russia. Anyways, man, this is a current approach of NATO that they will continue to support Ukrainian Nazis and fascists as long as it takes. Okay, why am I not surprised? And dear friends, I will end this first update on that. As I said, even though I don't really want to divide these updates in many parts, but I want to keep videos at least around an hour when there is plenty of news, and therefore I will end this video now, and I will record another one, and later on, as I said, I will publish on my Patreon and Boosty. Final update of the day. Most likely I will go for a walk somewhere in the center of Moscow, and I will record from there. And well, this is it then. Hopefully you will find this update interesting, informative, useful, entertaining. And if so, please click that like button, leave some commentary just about anything, any topic will do, to at least try and influence algorithm, especially on YouTube. And if it's convenient to you, dear friends, please watch my videos on Rumble and subscribe to my Rumble channel, because on Rumble my channel is monetized. On YouTube never was monetized and never will be monetized, so there are differences there. And if you like my work, if you want to support, dear friends, you can do it with donation through PayPal or Boosty platforms, or by subscribing to my Patreon page, and on my page on very same Boosty, where I have plenty of additional extra content, news updates, and videos about life in Russia. Okay, this is it for now. Have a great day and take care.